Good afternoon. This is Bob Jenkens. This is March 13th. We're recording this at the Clifford Thompson Post, 43 of the American Legion in Troy, Ohio. We're recording for the Miami County Veterans History Project in conjunction with the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress. Bob was in the Navy. He attained the rank of
Petty Officer second class.
Petty Officer second class?
Yes.
Okay. Bob, when's your birthday?
12/10/26.
Okay. Tell us about pre-service years.
Okay, I was born in Troy and grew up in Troy. Went to high school. I was having a problem with one of the teachers, and he bugged me all the time. He knew that he didn't like me, I didn't like him. And names shall be not dismissed, not that close. Anyhow, one day he upset me so bad in the middle of the class that I got up and walked out. Threw my books in the locker and I went home. My brother had already joined the Navy, and he was on the USS Pennsylvania battleship. And I went home and told my mom I'd like to go to Springfield and join the Navy. And myself and Richard Kennitzer both went to Springfield together, and we joined the Navy. And we had run aground together with my wife and he and his wife. And after I joined the Navy in Springfield, they sent me to Great Lakes Training Center. Went through boot camp. I was then transferred to Mare Island, California, and was assigned to the USS Howard W. Gilmore, AS-16, which is a submarine tender, as a radioman. And I spent almost a year and a half to 2 years doing nothing but copying code. I had no idea what I was copying or anything, and often wondered who decoded it and if it made any sense or not, because if you missed one character, it's kind of. But anyhow, after that, we went on a shakedown cruise. Well, I was stationed aboard the ship for 4 months while it was tied up and still being finished, tied up in dry dock. So after the ship was commissioned, we went on a shakedown cruise to Hawaii, which I loved, and came back, and then immediately we were assigned to Subic Bay in the Philippine Islands, and then I spent the next 18 months at Subic Bay, and I had been transferred from the ship over to the base. We set up a communications base on the island, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. When I finished boot camp, I was at the train station. I was on a 10-day leave, and I was on the train station, and I heard this whistle. And I was, wait a minute, that sounds like my brother. I never heard anybody whistle like he does, And I looked over, and there he was. He was coming home on leave the same time I was starting my leave, so we went home together. My parents hadn't seen me for about 6 months, and they hadn't seen him for a couple years. And we walked in together, and I thought my mom was going to have a heart attack. So that worked out really well. We got to meet a lot of my friends that I had gone to school with. And of course, he had to go back aboard ship. And he was a signalman. He ended up as petty officer, first class. Excuse me. After being on the island for 18 months, when I enlisted for what they call duration plus 6 months. So when the war was over, I was shipped back to Camp Shelton, Virginia, where I eventually was discharged. And then I went, at that time we were drawing like 5220, we called it the 5220 Club. returning veterans would draw $20 a month for 12 months, I think it was, or 52 months, weeks, 52 weeks. So I kind of lived off of that because I didn't have a job, and we just kind of hung around my house, my mom's house, and the Coke Hall in Piqua, plus Mayflower Sweet Shop, talking to our old buddies, you know. So I met my wife in Piqua at a Coke Hall dance in Piqua, and we really got pretty close, dated all the time, and one day I was talking to Dick Kennitzer, and we decided we were going to take the girls and go to Coney Island in Cincinnati. Well, in the meantime, after we made the plans, we decided between Dick and myself that we would try to get married while we were down there. He was going to stand up for us, and I was going to stand up for them.
Now, is this before the war?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And, yeah, it was before the war. Yeah, it was. Anyhow, we went to Coney Island, and when they went over to someplace in Kentucky, I'm not sure what the city was, but right across the river from, it was either Covington or one of those cities. And we got married first. My wife and I got married first. And they stood up for us. Come time for him to get married, they chickened out. So when we came home, of course we had to go home and tell our parents that we were married. My mom and dad loved it. We went to see her mom, and she was sitting in a chair, and when we walked in, Jackie said, "Mom, I got something to tell you." And Grandma stood up, and she said, "What?" She said, "Bob and I got married." Well, she said, "I just knew that was going to happen." And she kind of went to slap her in the face, and she missed, and she keeled over and fell on the couch. And her sister right away said that, "Mom, don't let them go home together. Let Bob go home. Jackie stays here." Jackie said, "Where Bob goes, I go. We're married." So we went to Troy, and we lived around, running around with our friends for several months. And finally one day my mom said, "Bob, don't you think you ought to go out and look for a job?" I said, "Okay." So I went to Hobart Corp, put in my application, went from there over to Hobart Brothers, put in an application, went home. When I walked in the back door, my mom said, "Hobart Corp called, wants you to come over for an interview." So I got back in the car, drove to Hobart Corp for an interview, and the guy said, I think it was Al Brennan, I don't know if you remember him or not. But anyhow, he said, "Did you have chemistry in high school?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Fine." He said, "We're looking for somebody that's got a chemical background. We're starting a new laboratory at Hobart. It's called the Materials Lab, and we already have a chief chemist, and we need a lab tech." I said, "Well, okay, what do I do?" They said, "Well, we'll teach you what to do. Well, that comes up later." So after 43 years, I retired. And when I retired, they offered me a contract to come back as a consultant, and I stayed 7 more years. So I ended up with about 50 years at Hobart, doing the same thing. And actually, for there, we didn't do a whole lot. We just kind of hung around, and we had started having children. And I have a boy that's 65, and another boy 64, and a daughter 54. And we lost a little girl just about a year before my daughter was born. She had spina bifida. And they told us when she was born that she'd never live long enough to go home with us. So when it came time for my wife to be discharged, she said, "I want my baby." And they said, "Well, I wouldn't do that. Your baby's not going to make it." She said, "I'm going home with my baby, or I'm not going home." So they got the baby ready, so we went home and kept her 9 more months before she died. prettiest little baby I ever saw in my life. Of course, she was paralyzed from the waist down. And then, let's see, my two boys, one was in the Air Force and the other one went to the Navy. And he told me one time, he said, if they ever send me to sea aboard ship, I'm going naval. And I said, why would you join the Navy if you didn't want to be on a ship? And he said, well, I thought they had a Navy on shore. That's where I want to be. And I said, well, good luck.
Now, when you enlisted, you were married when you enlisted?
Yes.
Okay. And did you have children when you enlisted?
No.
No. So they came after your
Yes.
service time.
Yeah.
So go back to the early service days. You went to Great Lakes.
Went to Great Lakes.
Then you went to Hawaii, and you went to Subic Bay.
Yes.
What years are we talking there?
Oh, well, it must have been late 44 or early 45. I'm not
Okay.
pretty clear on that.
So start from there and tell us about your service years.
My service years were spent mostly, like I say, sitting in a little radio shack about the size of most people's restroom, with equipment all the way around me, and one chair in the middle. You just kind of spun around to get your transmitter. Yeah, so anyway, let's see, I can't remember. I tell you, I've lost a lot of that time someplace. I still remember it once in a while, but must not have been too eventful.
What were you said you were decoding. What?
Well, I was copying on a typewriter through earphones code, Morse code.
Morse code.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it was all in 5-letter groups. I just typed 5 letters and then a space and then 5 more letters. All I knew was they were letters. I had no idea what it meant or what it said or anything. And then somebody in the decoding department would sit there and decode it into a message. So I did that for quite a while, aboard ship and also on the Subic Bay Island. One thing that was kind of exciting and also not very much fun, they asked for volunteers to go around the island and help clean up some of the dead Japanese bodies. And they had people that were doing that, but they had so many of them that they just needed some help, so I volunteered. That's when I learned you don't volunteer to do anything.
No.
Well, anyhow, after about a half days of that, I said, I don't want any more of this. That was awful. Of course, some of those bodies had laid there for months. And you can imagine what that was like. So then I begged out off of that one. And the rest of my Navy life on Subic was fairly uneventful. Just get up, go to work, get off, sleep, and there wasn't much to do. I did make several trips to Manila from Subic Bay, which was pretty awesome, except for some of the buildings had been lowered by bombings and stuff. No, there was really nothing happened that I can think of that.
Was most of the fighting at that period
Pretty much over
winding
at that time,
down?
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Let's see, the war was over in 45, wasn't it?
August 15th.
Yeah, it was still on when I was there, but I can remember the speech that was made by the president stating that the war was over. And then until I had 18 months duration plus 18 months. Was it 18 months?
tell us what it was like listening to the speech.
Oh, well, it was quite tearful, really. I couldn't, after seeing some of the damage that had been done by the bombings and killings, that just kind of got to my heart. And I actually cried when he said that the war was over. Of course, I saw no action at all. Nobody shot at us or fired. One time, a Japanese airplane got within our mass of ships. I think we had 47 ships, and he got inside our perimeter, It was flying between the ships at low level, and nobody could fire because they'd hit one of their own ships if they did. And all of a sudden, he went out of sight, and next thing I know, I heard all these guns going off, and anti-aircraft guns. And they evidently, I heard later that they had shot him down. He'd left the perimeter and was trying to get away, and they shot him down on his way out. So I have no idea what he was doing there. But he just made one pass after another down through the ships. But, that's as close as I came to combat, which didn't upset me too much.
Did I see here you were a signalman too?
No, my brother was a signalman.
Your brother was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I have signalman there?
When you had mentioned signalman.
Yeah.
So you and your brother were in then at the same time?
Yeah, except he was on the Pennsylvania and I was on the Howard W. Gilmore. And like I say, we met at boot camp. We met in Chicago after I got discharged. We met at train station and came home together. We met one time and came home together, and then we met when I had been discharged, and we both came home together on that time.
Were you in the Pacific at the same
South
time?
Pacific the whole time.
The whole
yes.
time?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
did you get to see much of the South Pacific while you were on ship?
No, actually I didn't. I went to Australia. I was there 3 days, so I didn't get I was off the ship once, so I really didn't get to see anything. Although what I did see was beautiful. Then we went from there to one of the we caught a convoy and went up to Subic Bay in Philippines. That's where I spent the rest of my Navy life, except for being discharged.
No.
Camp Shelton, Virginia.
How did you live on? You lived on ship the whole time?
Well,
So-
until I was transferred to the communications base in Subic Bay. I was on the ship maybe four months after we got there. And they asked for volunteers to go aboard to help set up the communications department. So I spent the rest of the time there until I was shipped back to the United States.
Okay, what was the primary responsibility for the ship that you were on?
It was a submarine tender. We had 12 submarines attached to our ship, and we supplied them with everything: food, supplies, ammunition. We had torpedoes and everything aboard ship, and they transferred them right to the submarines. And I understand that for some strange reason, there was another tender at Mare Island, California, when we left, and which had been commissioned long before the Howard W. Gilmore. And when I found out later, after I got out of the service, I found out that they had decommissioned the Howard W. Gilmore, but still had the older one. So I never did understand that. But that was a great ship.
How did you were married when you were in the service, how did you keep in touch with Jackie?
By mail.
Mail?
Yeah. The funny part about this, I would get my mail, and there happened to be another Robert E. Jenkens aboard the same ship. His middle name was Edward, and mine was Eugene, but she always cited Robert E. Well, he got my mail a lot of times, and I got his. So I thought Jackie was telling me things, I said, wait a minute, this doesn't mean anything to me.
That could be
Yeah,
interesting.
so we finally got that straightened out.
Well,
That's funny.
did you ever get up, as your ship was heading back, did you get up around Japan at all? Did you get up
No,
in those
no,
waters?
we came right straight from the
Straight?
Philippines back to
Did you come back to Hawaii?
yeah, and then back to the States.
Were you in Hawaii very long?
About 6 months.
can't be
That's
all
kinda
that
nice.
bad.
No, that was nice. My wife and I had a chance to go to Hawaii about, I think it's been about a year and a half ago. And I tried to we stayed in the Hawaiian hotel. and we tried to find it. And when I was over there, the tallest building was maybe 2 stories. We went back this is about a year and a half ago, and my God, I never saw so many tall buildings in my life. And we finally found that hotel. The Navy had taken it over as an R&R station, relaxation and rest for returning veterans. And I was in it for maybe 3 weeks. Beautiful hotel, marble hallways and pillars, and just beautiful. And I finally found it, and it looked the same, but the city didn't. I didn't see any grass shacks or anything like that, which was there in 44 and 45. Really made a big change.
While you were there, were you there as Navy personnel, or did you get to see the islands and all?
What, a year and a half ago?
No,
No,
when you
no,
were
what,
after.
no, oh yeah, we went all over the place, Pearl Harbor,
So-
yeah. If you could find a ride someplace, why,
Yeah.
yeah, we went.
Tell us about Pearl Harbor after the fact.
I tell you what, the only thing I saw that would remind you of the attack was the Arizona, and it was half out of the water, half, and now it's a monument. And I did have a chance to go up and around that when we went out there. Other than that, it was pretty uneventful.
How did you get home then from Hawaii? By ship?
By ship, yeah. We
So-
came back on a troop ship,
On a troop ship.
yeah.
How many would you say?
I was told there was somewhat like 1,500
So,
veterans returning on that ship. Pretty big ship.
everybody going home.
Yep.
So, can't beat that.
Yeah.
What was it like coming home?
Oh. I don't know how to put that in words, but it's just knowing that you are going home and everything's okay. I knew my brother had made it home safely, and just couldn't wait to get home.
So he got home before you.
Actually, we came home together.
So,
We met each other in a train station in Chicago and came home together.
how was your reception when you got home?
Oh, my mother was about beside herself. My dad, I think, was at work when we got home, and when he came home, he walked in, he recognized our voices when he walked in, he said, "What's happening?" And when Bob told him that both of us were out of the Navy and everything was fine.
So, you have some things here in front of you.
Yes, this is a
Tell us
picture.
what this are.
This is a picture of my ship. It was 457 feet long.
So, what's the name of your ship?
Howard W. Gilmore.
Okay.
It was the insignia was AS-16.
AS-16.
Yeah.
And how many?
It had 1,500 crewmen, and we had about 2,000 people going over aboard it.
Okay, so the purpose of your ship was to escort the dozen or
So
so
it was to supply.
supplied
Yeah, the 12 submarines.
12 submarines.
Mhm.
Okay. That has to be you.
Yeah, this is, that's me, just before I got home. I sent this picture to my mother, and
Okay, and that was taken in the Philippines,
that was taken in
Hawaii.
Hawaii. Yes, it was. Yeah. And I don't know if you'd be interested, but this is an article that
Sure.
this was May 2nd of 1944, where my brother and I met each other. And it said, Orville, Petty Officer First Class, had been at sea 2 years, crossed the equator 4 times, took part in bombardment of Kiska, Attu, met Trojan at Pearl Harbor, and that Trojan was me. And this is a picture of my brother and myself. He's talking about where he'd been and pretty much where I had been. As you can see, the paper is pretty old.
Was this brother the only
That's-
other family member you had in the service?
Yes, that's the only, well, they had no other, just us two.
Just the two of you?
Mhm. He's 3 years older than I was. He eventually went to college, graduated cum laude, and ended up as a superintendent of schools in Shaker Heights, Ohio, for years. He had 5 kids, 2 whom are doctors right now. The other 3, I think, are nurses. Or nurses, I'm not sure if they're full nurses or not. But he died when he was 47 years old of lymphatic cancer. And my father died. In fact, my mother and father both died at 77 years old. My father died first of heart failure. And after he died, she told us that she had a problem in her chest, ended up with breast cancer. And it had been there so long that by the time they found it, it had gone to the bones, and she died a pretty painful death. And otherwise, my life is pretty dull.
Oh, I don't think so. You've got a uniform back there.
Yes.
Show us that.
This is
So,
my whites, and it's pretty dirty. It's been packed away in a cedar chest for years. And you can see the size of it. It's not very big. But when I was in the Navy, I weighed 128 pounds. 6 foot and 128 pounds. And
That's right.
when I got out, I was 6 foot and 155 pounds. So they fed us well. This is my insignia.
show us
as
your insignia.
radioman, second class.
Okay, now what tells me it's a radio?
The Sparks.
The
They
Sparks,
call
okay.
it a Sparky.
Okay.
And I have no idea what size it is. It's small, pretty small. And the pants are, as you can see, they're bell bottoms.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the uniforms, like I say, these were all tailor-made in San Francisco, I think. And the only identification I had was my initials. So I didn't lose them in the washing.
And what must that waist size be?
I think it was about 30, 32, something like that. Wasn't very big,
So,
but I have no more use for it.
okay, now, fast forward to today. What are your thoughts on? Reflect on it.
Well, right now, my wife and I both volunteer at the hospital 2 days a week. I volunteer. I've been in cardiac rehab. Well, I missed the part about my heart problem. In 1947, I had, 46, I had chest pains. Went to the doctor, and my heart was just right about 150 mile an hour, And so they found out I needed a 5-way bypass. And so I had that, came out very successful. And about 3 years later, I had a stent put in. And several years later, I had another stent put in. And then while I was in the emergency room, I had another bout of rapid heartbeat. They took me at the emergency room. And the doctor says, oh, you're having a heart attack. And I said, no, I don't think so. He said, oh, yeah, you're having a heart attack right now. I had no pain whatsoever. And so I had 2 heart attacks, so they tell me. I didn't know that. I took their word for it. And so after I got out of the hospital, they put me in cardiac rehab at Stowler Hospital at that time. And let's see. I kind of lost my train of thought. But anyhow, we volunteer 2 days. I do cardiac rehab twice a week, once a week, twice on Thursday, and then on Tuesday we volunteer at escort. And now I think we're about to change over to cancer care unit as soon as they get it all finished. And then 2 days a week we go to the WWII and take an arthritic swim class, which is warm water, and that's helped me tremendously. I've had a problem with my legs for I don't know how long. I think I've got permanent muscle damage by taking statins. They can't prove that. I can't prove it, so then nobody can diagnose me. They went to Cleveland Clinic. They don't know what's wrong with me. So I just live with it. They tell me I've got the strength but no endurance. And when I get up in the morning, I feel like I can go, man. And after about from here to the kitchen, my legs feel like 2 rubber bands. It's pretty bad. So, and of all things to be doing at the hospital is escort, where you have to push these 300-pound people around in wheelchairs on carpet. I'm just about to the point where I may have to look someplace else for a volunteering job. So, other than that, why, I can't think of anything else.
So, your service years, good time, bad time?
Oh, good times, yes, very much. So, yeah.
Glad you did it?
Oh, sure, I'd do it again in a minute. In fact, I think if I did it again, I wouldn't mind making a career out of it. But I was so happy just to get out, knowing that my brother was coming home too. I was just so happy to get out. I said, I went out. No, I'm done. Couldn't wait to get home.
I'm sure your family was glad to see you.
Oh, sure
So,
they were. Yeah.
Bob, is there anything else you want to tell us? You have anything else
No,
back here?
I looked
in your...
everywhere. I couldn't find anything else. I can't find my medals or anything. So if I had them, I'm sure I'd had some. I don't know where they are.
No. Well, thank you. Thank you for your service. And thank you on behalf of the Miami County Veterans History Project.
Okay, thank
So-
you.